I was given a Sony DCRHC26. This is a very small mini DV camcorder. I was given it for parts. And you know, I can't just take something for parts. I gotta see whether it's fixable or not. So I'm gonna tear this thing down and we're gonna tinker around with it and see if I can get this one to work. So let's check it out. I have this little Sony camera given to me. This is a, what is this thing? It's a DCRHC26 and the cassette compartment is stuck open. So didn't get an adapter or anything with it. I do have one though that will work it, I'm sure. It's the same as my other cameras, and this uses an lithium P, which I don't have one of those batteries either, because Sony had a real thing about changing the batteries all the time. But let's just see what this does when I try to turn it on. Oh, it might help if I turn on the power to the bench. One moment. All right, power on. Now, what happens when I try turning this thing on? It says, please reattach the power source. And it does get a picture. So we know that the camera section is working with a C3211 error. The cassette compartment does not open in any way, shape, or form. Let's see if I can figure out why this is not working. It seems like the mechanism is jammed, or it's open, and it's not resetting. So it might be just a case of the mode switch being dirty. I don't see any parts that appear to be broken. Everything seems to be where it's supposed to be. Looking down at the into the mechanism here. But normally these would, you'd hear the loading motor shift and it would try to go through a loading cycle. But I hear nothing. Like it's jammed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my power supply. I've just got a couple screwdrivers attached to the end of the power supply. I'm just going to make contact with the loading motor at about 4.5 volts or so. See if the mechanism will move by applying external power, which it did. Okay, I got the mechanism to close. I wonder if I give it power now, whether it will do anything. Like it's latched shut now. So when it was jammed. Cool. Now, what message do I get? Please reinsert the cassette. Let's see if it will open. Ah, so it's not detecting that it's that there's a cassette. Something's out of adjustment on this unit. So I forced the cassette compartment to close. Let's just take out some screws here and open this camera up and see whether I can see what's going wrong with it. I've never worked on any of these tiny little mini DV cameras before, so bear with me as I open this tiny camera up. This is miniaturization at its absolute finest on these small cameras. I think it's about the same size as my little HC3, if I'm not mistaken. It's a pretty small camera too. I've never been into it though. I hope I never have to get into it. Okay, AV port and DV port and firewire up here. For those unfamiliar with the HDR HC3, it's a high definition camera. 4 megapixel CMOS sensor as opposed to a CCD, and it also has a xenon flash for taking stills. So it's got the high voltage circuitry like a still camera, and it has a mechanical shutter that actually, you hear it go click and you see it. It actually has a mechanical shutter when you're taking still photos. It's actually a pretty cool little camera. I should show it off sometime. I've used it. I should just show it off as what it is, because it's tiny, about the size of this thing, but man, it's got a lot of cool features. Put a memory stick in it as well, and it takes stills, and the quality of the stills for its day, it was only a 4 megapixel camera, but it had the real electronic flash, xenon flash, and it took really detailed pictures for a 4 megapixel camera. This thing's got a gajillion screws to take out. And remember, I've never taken one of these apart before.
It's interesting to notice that they don't have all these screws marked with arrows, which is normal for Sony, for their camcorders, right? Sony always usually marks the screws with an arrow that need to come out, so I'm just removing them all. We'll see how this thing pops apart. Looks like that pulls this side off.
Of course, Sony has hidden screws.
Oops.
Once all the screws are out, it actually comes apart quite easily, but finding the hidden screws is the challenge when you don't have a service manual to tell you where they are.
Ah, one more screw up here. Now, will this lift off? You got to think that something's going to pull out here. Something's going to pop apart. It can't be that difficult to open these things up. Does this lift out? I think that lifts out like that. There, that comes out, and there's another screw up top here. And now this side cover should lift off, I think. One more screw up front here, I think. That one's got to come out too.
For those of you wondering how far I'm going to be tearing this thing down, it's coming apart completely.
And then this side cover should lift off, which it does. And there should be some plugs that need to come out, which there are. There's a couple of plugs down here that need to come out, namely this one, namely this one here, and this little speaker, and this other ribbon cable needs to come out. If it lifts up, or I think it might have a, maybe not. It just lifts out. Very tight fit. Okay, so there's the little circuit board on this one. Now, they sure had these things small, didn't they? Not much to them. The tape transport takes up the most amount of space. That covers off. This piece should come off. I think the side cover comes off.
For those of you wondering, yes, I'm kind of letting this play out in real time so you can see how much work is involved to take one of these apart. And if you want to take one apart, at least you see how it comes apart and how it goes back together. Because these are one of the more complex of the camcorders, primarily because of the size. But they do come apart quite easy once you figure out what screws have to come out in the order that things come apart. Like when I put it together, it'll go together fairly quickly, even though I did kind of mess up a few times. And had to go back and put things in I forgot to put in the first time. But I'm going to let this play out kind of in real time, so you guys get it to appreciate how much work goes into servicing these units. At this point, I don't even know whether I'm going to be able to get it working or not. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. You'll have to kind of hang around and see whether I am able to complete this project or not. But it was a frustrating one. It was just figuring out how to take it apart was half the battle.
That comes off. Where does it lift off? This front nose cone comes off, I think, like that. Yep, that comes off like that. That piece lifts off with another ribbon connector here. This is a ZIF socket, so we can undo the clip there. That piece will pop off. That comes off like that. Okay, now what? Now this bottom piece should lift off. Like that. And then this back piece probably lifts off. Now this lifts off, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this red screw's got to come out. And this whole viewfinder assembly will probably lift out. Now, knowing the way Sony build things, there's probably another screw that goes in from behind here, because that's just the way it's something Sony would do. This piece should lift out. That comes out like that. It plugs in. The back here, this is the battery terminal, and then this piece probably lifts out on the top. Another screw down here. I think this holds on this base and the tripod mount. So that comes off, and then this base comes off. And you guys are probably wondering what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to reseat these connectors. That seems to be the number one fault with all these stupid mechanisms, is that connectors get unseated or connections go bad, and you end up with intermittent problems. So I'm going to start by reseating the connectors and go from there and see whether that will fix this up. I think these connectors they flip up. That's how they go. They flip up like that, and then these unplug. So we'll flip them up and plug them back in.
I'll add, if the lighting looks a little different, I've added 2 new 85 watt 5600 Kelvin compact fluorescents over top. So it gives them a little better color balance, but a whole lot more light. So you might notice it on camera that it looks to be a little brighter. Well, it is. These 85 watt CFLs give off the equivalent light of about an 800 watt incandescent bulb.
I think that's the one for the front panel, actually. Yeah, that's the one for the front panel. So I don't think that would be the one causing any problems. But this other one here is mechanism control, so this one might have an influence. Just reseat. Okay, now try putting the hooking the battery back up again and see what it does. Let's That's this side. Battery and DC in. See if it'll open and close. Without plugging anything else in, of course. Okay, put power to this thing. See what it does. See if it does anything different than before. Now open it up. Will it open? It may not do anything unless I have other things connected to it as well, but we'll see.
Now the reason it won't open is because the door switch, the little white button right below my thumb there, it actually makes contact with the side cover.
I may have to connect the other.
The side cover not
So
being
the
on will
board's up.
prevent it from ejecting.
So we'll just pop this back in for now.
The door switch, which is on the right side cover that opens up, makes contact with that rear cover. That's what tells it that you've opened it so that it'll eject. So without the back cover in place, it's not going to do anything. Of course, I figured that out after I put it all back together. Okay, it's still doing the same thing as was before. The mechanism is jamming in the eject position and it's not latching or closing. So I guess we have to tear this down a little bit further and see if we can figure out why it's not loading. So let's get started on that.
Take off the camera section. That's one hell of a small little board. One screw, and that board should lift out. Two more on the bottom here. Okay, that's the board out now. Let's see. BGA on both sides of this one. Okay, tape transport is now separate. I just want to take a look at this transport. I should be able to remove this plastic cover. There's the tape transport out. We can operate this tape transport with our power supply. So we got our loading motor over here. And somewhere on here there should be a mode switch. I was looking for where it is. There will be switches somewhere on this. It does appear to be going through the motions properly. I don't see anything mechanical wrong with it.
Well, not yet. Anyway, we'll get to it. Don't worry. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm inspecting. I'm looking for anything visual that may be not right and checking everything out. Looking for any loose screws and anything that could cause the mechanism to jam up.
It sticks. Why is it sticking? It's like the capstan is sticking. There might be something in the gears here is what I'm thinking. Maybe some debris in the gears. I can turn the capstan motor, and I try to turn it this way. It seems to stick. So let me pull this plastic cover, this tape off the bottom here. I want to be able to turn the capstan motor by hand a little easier. Something appears to be sticking it, and that might be why it's jamming up. Something maybe like even a grain of sand or something in the teeth of the gears. Okay, now I can turn this a little easier here. Yeah, it's sticking. I can turn it this way, and it sticks. There we go, stuck. What is it? Why is it sticking? Okay, now it's free. There's a little toothed belt that goes around here to drive this gear, drive the pendulum gear. You can see the pendulum gear there. There's a little toothed belt that turns that, and it was a point that it was stuck, and now it's free. I just don't know why. Whether there was a grain of sand in there. That's all it takes is one little pebble that gets into these mechanisms and sticks into the gears and causes us all kinds of headaches. But now it's spinning freely, and it wasn't a minute ago. It was stuck. Interesting. Wonder if that's what was causing my problem. When it powered up, it tried to spin the capstan motor and couldn't spin it, because these go through self-tests when they first start up to make sure that nothing is sticking. Whatever was causing that to stick is no longer causing it to stick. I can turn that freely now. Got to inspect all the little teeth. Make sure there's nothing jammed in any of the little teeth for the gears down here. Just to say, all it takes is one little grain of sand in any of these teeth. Very, very delicate mechanisms on these cameras.
And of course, where does everybody take these camcorders, right? On holidays. Where do they go? The beach. And it spins freely.
See the little video heads on there.
I think the only camcorder that was actually smaller than this that Sony made was that Micro MV. It used an even smaller tape, and I can't imagine trying to service one of those. This is bad enough.
Drop that back in place. We'll start to reassemble this camera and see whether I get any different results. If I can remember how to put it back together.
While I had the drum out, I gave a small shot of cleaner to that mode switch under that gear that I pointed out earlier. Just working the mechanism back and forth a few times to clean up any contacts, just in case there was some dirt and debris in the contacts, to clean them up. That's why I'm loading and unloading. Now the hard part, remembering what goes back together in what order. Remember, this is the first time I've ever taken one of these ones apart.
Now at this point I don't know whether this is going to work or not. I'm just kind of reassembling it so I can test it. I don't even going to go any further on this if it doesn't work. This may be just a tear down and reassemble video, and then this will just be a parts machine, because that transport is probably okay. Always good to have a spare head for a DV system. Okay, so this should be put together far enough that I can turn this thing on and see whether it does anything different than it did before. In other words, will it try to accept the tape, or whether or is it just going to jam like it did before and go into eject mode and okay, that went down that time. Do I dare try a tape in it? I think I have to. So I'll put this into VTR mode. Okay. I do believe I see a picture. It's working. Cool. And I'll go back down. It did work. Why did it work that once? That time it worked. It's working. Well, I'm going to put this thing back together and see what happens. So, we'll stick the side cover on like that. Pop this thing back together, however it goes. Might help if I put the shield back in. Let's put the shield in first. For safety, I'm going to remove these plugs again just for now. I don't want to damage the ribbon, so I'll pull that out just so I can get this shield back in place, because it actually has to go in under here. I got to remove the battery. Again, the battery cover kind of slides in under here. Like that, sort of. Like that. Okay, that goes in like that. I think I put a screw in the wrong place. Did I put a screw underneath there? Yes, I did. It doesn't go through there. It actually comes in on the other side. It comes in from the bottom. So I got to remove that screw. This just snaps together at this point. This goes on like this. Like that, and then there's a screw that goes through from the bottom that holds this in place. Like that. And then this cover goes on. And then this piece snaps on. There's a screw that goes on the top here. There's another screw that goes in over the top over here. And then this top cover goes in place. That's held in place by yet another screw over here. And then we got a couple of longer silver screws to go in the bottom. Okay. Clock setting has been cancelled. I do believe it's working. How do I adjust the volume on this? There should be volume on here. I just don't know how to do it. Volume. That's probably some of the buttons on here will adjust the volume for the playback through the speaker, I would think. I can always go get my audio video cables and we'll plug it into the TV. I would get a special cable for this. We'll plug it into the TV and see if it works. There it is, playing back perfectly. How's our sound? We have natural sound. I've only got one channel plugged in, so we're not going to get stereo off this. And if I go to fast forward, search forward, search back.
That plus the fact that I only had one mic on the camera, so it's mono anyway.
Pause.
Natural sound.
Play. It's working. I'll go grab another tape and we'll do a recording on it. Rewind this tape back to the beginning. What? Oh, this tape's got a crease, I think, on it at the beginning. We'll just make sure that the tape is past the section that had the crease in it. There is a crease on this tape at the very beginning. Probably see it there, right? It's an old tape. See if it'll thread up now. Okay, so we'll just do a recording right here. So we're recording now on my workbench. Testing 1, 2, zoom in. A little too close. Zoom in, zoom out. Okay, that's good enough. Go back to the playback side. I guess it really does want me to set the clock, doesn't it? It's going to keep prompting me. And this is what I just recorded on my workbench. Testing 1, 2, zoom in. A little too close. Zoom in, zoom out. That's good enough. Okay, I guess it's working. So there we go. My free little camera that I just got today given to me. And it's working. The only thing is I can't use it because I don't have a battery for it. It uses the Infolium P and I don't have any of those batteries. But I do have a power supply, so it just makes itself useful as another little DV player to add to my collection. And if I ever come across a battery for it, well, I won't be recording on tape anyway. Come on, don't kid yourself. But still, it's a nice little marvel of Handycams, one of the smallest that they made. It's complement my little HDV camera quite nicely. Anyway, thanks for watching. This one probably went on a little too long and was probably a little too boring, but I wanted to disassemble this entire mechanism, and I think what we found on it was just the capstan motor, something was jamming it, and it wasn't. When it powered up, it tried to kick the capstan motor, and when it couldn't turn the capstan motor at all, it came up with an error. All I did was take it all apart, reseat everything, and get that capstan motor freed up. I did give a little bit of cleaner. You guys didn't see it because I didn't do it on camera, but I did put a little bit of cleaner down on the mode switch. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.